Qualifying for the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix is in the books, and there was some predictability and some unpredictability up and down the grid. So we obviously know that predictability is the pole sitter once again, Max Verstappen, and this time he's 3/10 ahead of Charles Leclerc. He is looking absolutely dominant once again, barring any technical issues, mechanical problems, any accidents. It looks like Verstappen will cruise off into the sunset, or in this case, the moonlight. We're racing under the lights in Saudi Arabia. However, this time around, it does look like we'll have a much closer race behind him than we did in Bahrain. Charles Leclerc, Sergio Perez, Fernando Alonso, all three of them, second, third, and fourth, are separated by about half a tenth a second. So we should get a pretty good race between those three, assuming that we get through the first corner cleanly and we actually have a good race. But pace-wise, that's the Ferrari, the Red Bull, and the Aston Martin all looking pretty good. Fernando Alonso, the wily old fox, proving once again he's like a fine wine. He's only getting better with age. He put in a cracker of a lap, and honestly, probably could have been P2. It looks like his final sector wasn't too great, but we know the pace in the car is there. We know the pace in Fernando is there. He should put up a pretty good challenge, and he's definitely a contender for a podium position on Saturday. McLaren looked pretty good once again. They locked out the third row this time, though, so an improvement over the Bahrain Grand Prix. Piastri starting in 5th, Lando Norris starting in 6th. That car is looking very good, and honestly, if anything does happen between Perez, Leclerc, and Alonso, they could be in pouncing position to steal one of those podium places, so don't sleep on McLaren. Do not count them out. They are going to put up a very, very good fight on Saturday in the race. Now, the one thing that really did stand out to me from this qualifying session, though, and for all the wrong reasons, is that Mercedes W15. My goodness, George Russell and Lewis Hamilton, they both look like they are really struggling to handle this car. Lewis Hamilton went on the radio after, I believe it was Q1, just stating that he could not improve. He had absolutely no grip in the car. It is a little bit worrying. George Russell also, I believe, had to abort his final lap in Q3 for a big mistake in the first sector. It looks like they are really, really struggling to get a grip on that car. The setup is just not really there right now. So they have a lot of work to do to figure out that W15, because as it stands right now, at least on the Jeddah Corniche circuit, the McLaren is the third best car ahead of the Mercedes. Now, this is really interesting to me because after preseason testing, George Russell said the car felt a lot easier to handle than the W14. And while yes, he did do pretty good in qualifying in Bahrain, Saudi Arabia looked like a much bigger struggle for him, and the same thing goes for his teammate Lewis Hamilton. Just not really working out right now. You can see it's definitely weighing on Toto. He wants to get this thing sorted out. So yeah, not the best of times for Mercedes right now, but it's still early days in the season. I'm sure they're going to find some upgrades and improve that car. And just a few other shoutouts I wanted to give in this qualifying session. The first one is Yuki Tsunoda, bouncing back from those dodgy team orders he received last weekend in Bahrain, and then completely losing his mind, dive bombing his teammate Daniel Ricciardo on the cool down lap. There was a lot of friction in that team. It seems like the driver sorted things out, and it seems like Yuki Tsunoda has had a big bounce back, getting into Q3, starting P9 for the Grand Prix. Also out-qualified Lance Stroll, so that was impressive from him, because clearly that Aston Martin should be faster than the V car right now, but Tsunoda definitely put in a better lap than Lance Stroll. Obviously, a big shout out to the rookie Ollie Behrman, who is stepping in for Carlos Sainz, who unfortunately was diagnosed with appendicitis. He is recovering well from his surgery, though, so great to hear. Get well soon, Carlos. But Ollie Behrman, with just one practice session under his belt, literally just learned how to drive this car in about an hour. He went out there and was honestly looking pretty good. Yes, he was overshooting some corners, carrying a little too much speed in, but that is to be expected. He literally just got in this car on the shortest of notice possible and got them to P11 in qualifying. He was only about 30 milliseconds away from knocking Lewis Hamilton out in Q2 and making it into Q3. I'm sure that everything goes well, there's no mechanical issues, and he can stay out of trouble on the track. I'm pretty certain he is going to get a points finish, which is just remarkable. He's the youngest driver to ever race for Ferrari in a Grand Prix. He just scored the Formula 2 feature race pole position earlier in the day too. Crazy weekend for this guy, but shouts out to him. I think he did great in his first ever qualifying session. Last shout out goes to the mechanics at Kick Sauber for repairing Joe's car after that big shun he had in FP3. Unfortunately, they were literally seconds away from getting this guy to the line to set a lap in Q1. They just missed the mark. The fact that he even got that car rebuilt so fast after that big accident, huge shout out to them. But guys, that's pretty much all I gathered from that qualifying session. Again, it looks like it might be a copy paste for Max Verstappen winning this Grand Prix, but the battle behind him I think is going to be really exciting tomorrow. That is what I'm focusing on. I think it should be a pretty good race. So let me know what you guys think. Leave those comments down below. Did you enjoy that qualifying session? Do you think there could be any surprises in the Saudi Grand Prix on Saturday? Let me know, guys. Make sure you've hit subscribe too. Leave those likes. Thank you so much for all the views I've been receiving the past few days. Really appreciate all the support, guys. See you next time, and we'll talk after the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix.